You remember all those 20,000 plus cryptocurrencies that actually exist out there, but only about 8,000 are active? Well, a lot of them, they did this thing called an initial coin offerings and really failed because of the fact that there is a huge mortality rate on the initial coin offerings to the tune that 80% of them fail. Well, that means 20% have gone on and done spectacular things. But the reality is, if you're one of those people that bought the 80% that failed, well, you may think a little bit differently about the whole aspect of what cryptocurrency is all about. Cryptocurrency, when you initially start it and you decide to come out with a brand new coin, you have an initial coin offering, and there's a huge parallel between the crypto aspect and the stock aspect. In the stock world, you have an initial public offering, which is the only time the company will ever make money on its stock. They're going to come out and they're going to spend 6 to 9 months going through all the different hoops for the Securities Exchange Commission to hold an initial public offering. They're going to go through wooing investors, especially the multi-million or billionaires, saying, whoa, we have this fabulous thing. We have this brand new service or product coming out where you can be the first one to own the stock. And the next day you can turn around and sell it and make millions and millions. That actually is kind of the hype that they go through. And you're going to have a hype like that too with an ICO. So the process of offering shares, the only time the company can sell shares and make cash money and put it into its bank is at the initial public offering. After that stock is sold to the first round of investors, then those investors can turn around and market it on the New York Stock Exchange, whatever exchange you want to, the NASDAQ, the Tokyo Stock Exchange, whatever. They can sell it on those other markets. And that's what you normally see people trading when they trade stock. They're buying it on that secondary market, but they're not buying it from the company. They're buying it from others investors. That really is the aspect of an IPO. And by the way, it's very similar with the ICO because a lot of us are not on the initial coin offering. We're buying those tokens or those coins out there, whatever it may be, in the secondary market. So because you're buying the coins from somebody else and not the company that originated them. So we have that aspect, except for the IPO is actually really regulated. So if you're going to offer brand new stock, you have to jump through a massive number of hoops, and you have an actual booklet of exactly what to expect from the company. It's mandated by the Securities Exchange Commission if you're going to hold that whole IPO aspect of it. And by the time you're done with that whole aspect and that portfolio estimation of what it's going to be, that whole description of it, you're going to have something you can actually go through that's tangible and see, look at performance is going to happen. But you really don't have that with the ICO. When on the IPO, you have this whole aspect, you have a very specific format, you have to have certain details out there, according to the Securities Exchange Commission, to sell the initial stock offering. But an ICO, you don't have that, except for the fact when you buy an ICO, it's pretty common that you have what's called a cryptocurrency token. It's called the utility token, and that's going to relate to the product or service the company's offered or a stake in the company. So it depends what they want to define it as, but they define it all in a white paper. Well, the white paper is not regulated by the SEC. It really is something, whatever the people that are pushing it think should be in there. So yes, it's detailed, except for the fact there's nobody monitoring it. You don't know about the honesty of the paper itself. You don't know about the analysis. You don't know about that because it's not regulated by the SEC. Frankly, this is one of those areas that I think we need to have a much higher regulation, because cryptocurrency is bad enough, but to have this ICO aspect is, yo, let's put this in here and we're going to do this and we're going to do this. There's no real commitment behind it because it's all opinion. And sometimes the people selling it are very sincere, but sometimes not so much. So the reality is that you'll hear me for one of the very few times that I'll ever say this out loud: look for more regulation on the ICOs. Now, listen, you need to understand that I am not a big fan of government regulation, but in this area, too many people have lost fortunes with the smoke and hot air emitting from the initial coin offering, because you have over 20,000 cryptocurrencies and only 8,000 are active. That needs to put a big red flag up. You need to enter this aspect really cautiously, except that 20% that made it, they made lots of money. Oh, it's really good. It's probably a better deal than playing the lottery anyway. At least 20% of them survive. So in the white paper release, you need to identify the project that's going to be fulfilled once they sell the ICO, how much money the project needs. So they have a specific fund in it. We'll talk about that later on. And then how many of the virtual tokens the founders will keep. So the founders will keep some. The people that are in the initial ICO, they'll get some as well. You know, type of payments that they'll accept. It just depends what they have, how long the ICO campaign will run. It really is a pitch sheet trying to get people to buy its tokens. They can use fiat or digital currency to buy the new tokens, depends whichever they want to do. It's pretty common for them to actually go in, toss in, buy it with Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, whatever you're going to be using for that. And you're going to be doing that similar to selling shares of stock in initial public offering. You have the same thing happening with your ICO, your initial coin offering. If the money raised in the ICO is less than the amount, sometimes they return the funds to the project's investors because they really need to fulfill the obligations they've incurred in that white paper. And just being dishonest, flat out dishonest, it would really be something different than what we're looking for in a white paper. So the ICO could be deemed unsuccessful if it doesn't meet its goals and expectations. Who can launch it? Well, anybody can launch it. You know what? Maybe after this class is done, we can all hang out, go down to the local pub and sit there and talk about launching our own initial coin campaign and maybe come up with our own cryptocurrency. Yeah, let's do that. Well, not really, but it's not quite that casual, but in some ways it actually is. Whoever can access the proper technology, they're free to launch a brand new cryptocurrency. Shoot, we have all kinds of things. One of them out there, the Dogecoin, actually was made up as a joke, and all of a sudden now it's got traction. It's one of the top cryptocurrencies out there. So you'll see all kinds of different aspects of it. The lack of regulations means somebody can do whatever it takes to make you believe they have a legitimate, I have the ultimate ICO, and it's gone with your money. An ICO is probably one of the easiest ways to set up a scam. That's why 80% of them fail. So the ICO, the activity decreased a lot in 2019 because there's a legal gray area that ICOs have it. And it really comes down to that item we talked about before, the Hobby method, as to what the Supreme Court defines as what is out there. And a couple ICOs, they were brought to heel by the Securities Exchange Commission, and you're seeing a much more active role by the SEC today than ever before. Investors can research and find out ICOs and which one they want to participate, but there's no surefire way to stay abreast of all the latest initial coin offerings, especially the promises that are made. So initial coins offerings background, 80% of them fail. The white paper is not definitive, and frankly, I think it should be. It should be clear exactly what they're expecting, very similar to the document that's provided by the IPO. And the funds have a purpose, which is stated generally. So you're going to generally get some expectation of it, but not the specificity that a lot of us really want. So initial coin offerings, potential opportunity, 20% of them go forward and do spectacular, but you have that 80% failure rate. So cryptocurrency, it's let the buyer beware. Take care.